All right, today we're talking about how to move from running an agency into actually leveraging M&A, that is acquiring other companies to grow your agency. My guest today is Peter Lang. I'll tell you more about him in a second, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, business leaders, and thought leaders and ask them how they built key relationships to get where they are today. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I'm the host of this show, and every week we have smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs from all kinds of companies. And if you check out the archives, we've got Netflix and Grubhub, Redfin, Gusto, Kinko's, YPO, EO, Activation Blizzard. Lots of great episodes for you to check out. And of course, before we get into this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses to give to and connect with their dream relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We do that by helping you to run your podcast. We are the easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do three things: strategy, accountability, and full execution. In fact, we actually invented what some are calling the Wix of B2B podcasting. It's our platform podcast co-pilot. And, Peter, one of the gifts of my life has been being able to take people like you, who I maybe meet once, and then being able to bring them on the show and hear their story and share with others the interesting work that they are doing. So you have a fascinating background, having built your agency and then leverage M&A. And so we're going to be sharing that here today. But if anyone wants to learn more about what we do at Rise 25 and learn about Podcast Copilot, go to rise25.com and email us at support@rise25.com. All right. My guest here today is Peter Lang. He's the founder of Digital Agency Business and partner at Digital Mastermind Group. He began his career after graduating from business school and established Uhuru Network. It's a digital marketing agency that grew to seven-figure revenues. And then he later figured out that M&A, mergers and acquisitions, acquiring other agencies, was really the path to accelerating growth. And so he got really deep into that. And now he's done his own acquisitions, runs a portfolio of different agency companies. And so we're going to be talking about that and some of the pitfalls and things you want to look out for. And, Peter, it's such a pleasure to have you here today. And I always ask my guests about what they were like as a kid and what the context they grew up around. Some people grew up in entrepreneurial families, and you did. You had the hippie side of the family, which is from Marin County, where I live, and then you had the ag side of the family. The Central Valley of California is a big ag area, more conservative than the more liberal coastal parts of California, and so you had those two extremes in your family that you grew up around, and also a family business. So tell us a little bit about how that shaped you and who you are today.
I'm very fortunate, John, to tell this story. So I appreciate you for hosting me. I'm bipolar. Yeah, that's what that means. So when you grow up with a Marin liberal family and a conservative Republican family,
then Thanksgiving dinners must be a blast. Yeah,
you got to be Switzerland to survive.
Yeah.
I give a lot of credit to my parents for giving me the leeway to spend time with both sides. We ran a family business. My parents still have the business today. That's 40 plus years in operation. And that means, like many kids that grow up in a family business, you're working. You're helping, whatever that may be. That could be cleaning the office. That could be running errands. That could be, paging dad. That's how long ago this was going, to tell him something that was material about a client that he was about to go see. And my parents were also accidental entrepreneurs, which kind of feeds into my story. And they were theater majors. So this is blend of
not business background. That's the kind of the opposite. Yeah.
Basically, we decide to never learn the thing we want to be paid for. They crossed their fingers and said, well, business school would be good for him. And thankfully that aligned. And the first signal to that was when I grew up, I wanted to be the kingpin. I'm not allowed to tell the story very much, but the whole Spider-Man villain, which is now becoming more familiar with all the things Netflix is doing. But the school counselor called my mom when they were saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, Kingpin from the Spider-Man comics. And instead of freaking out and thinking I wanted to be some like evil crime lord, she goes, oh, that must be the business side kicking in, because this is what we're growing up in. It's all in your life and your profession all in one. So that kind of led to who I am today. I did do the business school route. And thankfully I became an entrepreneur, and quite by accident, actually.
What did you learn from seeing your parents run the business that you take to what you do today? Is it caring for the clients? Is it getting, involved? Is it delegation? Good and bad. What are some of the good and bad lessons that you learned from seeing that? Because a lot of people, a lot of times, frankly, it's negative. A lot of people that I interview on this show grow up around a family business, and then they're like, I don't want to have any part of that, and then they eventually find their way back to it, and then they deliberately do it in a different way than their parents did.
Well, I didn't want to do the family business, so that was a disappointment for them for sure. But definitely the lessons. I remember sitting in the office waiting for my parents to wrap up, and my dad was out running the errands and working directly with clients. My mom was answering phones, and my mom would have long conversations with clients who had been with them for 10, 15, 20 years. And they would be talking about all these things that weren't work, just kind of this care for the client beyond just the work that you're providing. And that had a significant impact on me. It was, at the end of the day, you work for the people who you service. And now it's called servant mind. Said it's, service at its core, but at a young age, it's just like, oh, all these people help take care of us. So we take care of them. And then at the end of the day, my dad, there's no job he wouldn't, do that he would ask someone else to do that. It's constant professional. And there's no ego in that. You just do the job and get it done to the maximum capability that you have. And so that carried through to kind of like the way I see business and the way I go about life.
Yeah. So you end up, you go to business school, unlike your thespian parents, and you end up, this is the heyday of blogging, I would say. I think that this is
time.
The best time. I mean, like now no one starts a blog. But back then everyone was starting a blog. I started a blog.
Blogger. Yeah.
Yeah. This show started as a blog. And so you built up a blog to 1 million monthly visitors. I mean, that's insane. So talk a little bit about how you got into that and how you ended up building such a big following.
Well, business school is interesting, and I did have a passion for, understanding what it would mean for me financially and for my future, for sure. But I was a nerd. I built my first computer when I was 10, thanks to my uncle who kind of brought the pieces and parts and said, let's build a PC. And I was very curious about technology growing up. And that meant, hey, building websites. That meant doing all this stuff as hobbies. No one was paying me to do it. And I built my own kind of blog. And I was seeing all the people who were talking about blogging and doing it. And I was, again, university, able to do it, able to build it.
Mid 2000s. I'll bet it's even pre WordPress, right? Were you using something else?
No, WordPress came out. So WordPress was 3 years in when I launched.
Okay.
And
so 2006 time frame.
It was a bear.
Yeah. Because I think 2003 is when WordPress was launched.
Yeah, WordPress came on the scene. It was like a godsend of technology.
Oh yeah,
to make everything so much easier.
Yeah,
and we created a blog. This was a counterpart of mine who I studied abroad with in Paris. It's called Trucchi Facebook in Italian, Tricks Facebook in English. Trust me, cease and desist orders from Facebook came through after we started generating traffic, and it was about how to use Facebook and have fun with it. Personal branding, but also just tips and tricks. So people were Googling things about how to use Facebook. They found us.
Okay.
And so we're kind of piggybacking off of that, like the early days of Facebook.
Okay.
This was before ad platforms. Mm-hmm. So it's just like you wanted to do something that was kind of a trick or something you saw online that someone else did. You Google it and you found us. And it was kind of the how-to days. And people just started saying, like, how are you generating AdSense, revenue from this and income? How are you generating this traffic? Which was essentially SEO, content marketing. Yeah. And I said, we explained, they go, well, could you just do it for us? And that became kind of the accidental opportunity to build a company, which was, hey, I was doing it. Can I just do it for someone else as a service? Can I teach them? And that's how we started an agency.
And you mentioned you got a cease and desist from Facebook. What was that moment like when you got that first cease and desist, either in the mail or email? Did your heart sink? What was that moment like?
We could probably get away with ignoring it, was the first thought. So we wondered, how many of these does it take? So, because I couldn't track. I mean, we're young kids just building this, and we had this different flavor. And we weren't doing anything malicious and we weren't teaching people to do things that were wrong. So we're like, we're in the right. They just didn't like the fact that we had Facebook in the
Right. In the
domain.
domain. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't mind the content. There's plenty of people talking about similar things,
Right.
but the fact that we had Facebook in the domain, they didn't enjoy that very much.
Yeah.
We knew that our time in this business and kind of business, this time in this like little blurb of making money and this website would be short. Uh, that's the first thing. We're like, okay, well, this is fun, but this is not going to last. Um, and again, we didn't think to start an agency. We didn't come from agency worlds.
Right.
I was going into business. I was going into corporate finance. I was international business, corporate finance as a major, as a specificity, as a future for myself. I was thinking M&A. I was thinking finance, but it was 2010 and we just come off 2008 and I was learning technical analysis when the whole market was just going down. And it was just like, okay, maybe it's not the best time to try my hand in finance.
Yeah.
And people were offering to pay me to help them do the web thing. So we
Did
started a
you
website.
also get hit by one of these big Google updates, like a Panda or something like that? A lot of websites were affected in different time
No,
period.
we ranked really well because we created great content that solved the searchers' problems. That's it. So we didn't have like sophisticated backlinking and all that
Mm.
kind of gray hat type of tactics that had, penalties applied to them. We just created good content. The general ethos is provide value up front with no obligation. If you can do that consistently over time, you can generate traffic, you can generate value. So we did that. We never had really anything that disrupted traffic. We just grew as people,
Yeah.
and the opportunity to make money through an agency became high profit, fun service. We got better professionally, and you start hiring people, and guess what? You grow up a bit from running a business from your computer.
So you switched to, or you it sounds like maybe a gradual thing, but you switch your efforts to growing Uhuru Network, which looks like it was maybe 12 years or so. Before we get to the phase where you started acquiring companies, what were some of the early days challenges of building that agency that you struggled with?
I mean, it's 0 to 1 problems. If you start a business that you've never worked in before, you spend a lot of time reinventing the wheel.
Mm.
And some of that's really helpful for like professional development, like getting better and getting denied. I remember the first time we sold a 5K retainer, and like I was like, they're paying us 5,000 a month for services to do social media marketing and in the early days. So it was just exciting. Everything about the initial effort was exciting because we didn't know what we didn't know. But we also paid for advice. So we worked with like thought leaders in the space who had done it before to just kind of lease or buy their knowledge to kind of like compress time. I think one of the advantages I've had is I've failed way more than most in a short amount of time. And therefore I've had a lot of advancement and capability because also I was able to then bring in someone to help me fix or resolve it faster. And that goes from like Chet Holmes and the Ultimate Sales Machine before he passed. Then also working with people from the agency thought leadership space about what is the agency business, working with technology partners who support it to learn how these revenue models typically work, service models work. And it's just fun. It was just pure fun lifestyle business. I was very fortunate to have my girlfriend and what was my wife in the future to be a business partner in that company. And we just wrote our own story and
She
traveled
became a
quite a bit.
business partner before you started dating, after you started dating, when?
We met in university, and then she was managing a marketing team as an intern. And then they gave her like the chief marketing role or director marketing role, and she had a team. And then the chairman of the board fired her aggressively because I decided to use my startup, Uhuru Network. The corporate address was her house.
So they fired her.
Because it looked like he had a beef, and so he, in a very embarrassing way, terminated her. And I just like, here's a company, come join me.
Yeah. They're lost
Early
your
days.
gain.
Yeah, it was a fun but like emotionally turmoil time, and
Yeah.
but we got married in 2017, and then thankfully got the business to a point to where in 2018 we were able to step away. The business operated and grew without us. That's at 8. We took an 8-month sabbatical.
Yeah, I saw that. Tell me about that. How did you manage to go travel for 8 months? And what was your involvement during that time period? Did you have them like send in certain KPIs to you so you could oversee it, or did you just literally unplug and check back in 8 months later and hope for the best?
I mean, it was probably a combination of reading 4 Hour Workweek and Vagabonding. So Ralph Potts. And I was like, Tim Ferriss and Ralph Potts. Okay, one was adventure and discovery of the world, and the other one is, okay, how much time do you really need to do certain things in the
Right.
business? And so
Right.
we got it down to like the text message update level, to where as long as we knew the primary numbers that were operating the business, we knew it was going along fine. And again, we were already so many years in by the time we got married and took our honeymoon sabbatical
You're
that
like
like
8 years in, 8, 9 years in at that
yeah,
point. Yeah.
we were
Okay.
very comfortable and confident
Yeah.
with what we had built. And also it did help. Vanessa, although she was the president of the agency, had a fashion blog. It was also the heyday of fashion blogging, and she had 1 million monthly visitors. So
Mm.
like, and she went above 1 million and did some crazy things in that space. So um, we were very comfortable with that lifestyle business we had built. And that's when our mindset shift really hit. We were traveling, we were in the Peloponnese, and we were spending a month in Greece visiting friends, family friends who kind of said, come down here. There's no Americans down here. And I met a McKinsey consultant. So McKinsey consultant working with Imakina, which is a global group that was consolidating agencies through M&A and expanding and publicly listed. And he probably had too much octopus and ouzo, 11 p.m. at night. And he was sharing all this interesting stuff about what they were doing for digital transformation. They were using Scrum and Agile, which we had a Scrum and Agile agency. And they were then having all this arbitrage of efficiency because they were leveraging their systems on everything that they acquired. And we're like, oh, that's got
Smart.
the itch, got the itch.
You got the itch to do that. So that
2
was
months later,
so
we came
you were
back.
8 months. So you're 8 months in before had you not done an acquisition at that point?
We had done small little deals like acqui-hiring, but
Okay.
nothing that we would deem like M&A.
Okay.
We came back. This was November 2018. We were in Montreal. We did the Montreal half marathon, and we said, okay, we're going to go do M&A. And we came back to a mutiny. Like, it's been fine without you all. You're coming back and with all this growth, and you're going to do these things.
You come back with
And
this
so
idea. We're gonna acquire companies, and
we're going to go crazy and start
the
acquiring
team is like,
companies.
"What?
And,
No, we're
they're
not."
like, where have you been?
Yeah.
What have you done for me lately? Kind of mentality. And so we ran a change management program for a year. That's code for put different butts in the seat.
Okay.
We did an acquisition. This was an acqui-hire team of a Serbian outbound team that we did that summer. That was like the first flavor, kind of easy, light lift, seller finance type deal. And then one of my mentors, who's the accountant that supported the agency, he knew I was acquisitive, and he was also servicing another agency based in Southern California, Ventura more specifically. And Al said, hey, the owner committed suicide. The business has reverted up to the 82-year-old parents.
Wow.
They're the same size as you. So, we're about 3 million in revenue. So nothing massive, but,
Yeah.
decent size for a lifestyle business and pulling out good profits. He goes, you could double, like if you were to swoop on this and you were willing. Potentially,
And
it's
they
a
did
great
similar
opportunity.
types of things as an agency.
They were different enough.
Okay.
They were different enough that would give us expanded services, but they had some team resources that we didn't have in the creative department. So they definitely fortified us in some capacity, gave us a little bit more longevity. The brand had been around for 39 years.
Mm.
The guy that was running it bought it from the original founder.
Mm.
And it was just like, if you don't move on this, clients are gone, team's gone. It's pretty heavy. So it was a Thursday when he called me. He said the next day I got introduced to the parents, got introduced to the operator, made an offer, closed 7 days later.
Wow. Jeez.
So in 7 days, I doubled the agency.
Wow. That should be the
And
title of your book, by the way.
Well, I mean,
How to double your agency in 7 days or
the
less.
aha
Right
moment,
there.
and Al was like, I believe you can make this happen. And I thought, why do I spend my time doing anything else? Like all of the organic, all of the sales expansion, all the things that I was doing as CEO working in the business, why don't I work on it from things that don't exist that are outside of the business? And so I did another deal in November. This was a content marketing agency focused on healthcare. And then Al passed, and his wife, Robin, was our HR side of the business. And that was a shocker for us. But she cheered me on and said, you could continue to do this. Al believed in you. I did a terrible deal in February of 2020. Circumstances should tell you why. COVID hit right after. And then I held a town
So it
hall.
probably was the February 2021.
Wrong
What was
expectations for financial performance, and then a month later, everything froze on that business. So
now, a
it
lot
just
of agencies
COVID.
grew during after COVID, not initially, like a lot of agencies went down and then went up. So what happened there?
It was too small. So the way to
Mm,
think about it, even though it was an e-com conversion rate optimization agency, the owner's personal situation was completely disrupted because of COVID. And so I
mm,
call it a bad deal, but it wasn't because it was a bad business. And that's true of a lot of deals. Deals are wrapped in narratives of the owners, not always in the business.
got it.
Um, and so I showed up to the town hall. This was 2020. I did the presentation of, response to turbulence time. And I said the number one response we can do is scale and grow. And within 90 days, I did 3 acquisitions, fully remote through Zoom. And that's because I spent 80% of my time talking on Zoom, letting my beard grow, talking to agency owners and saying, what are you seeing here? Is it time to come together and do something bigger? And that's kind of when people got to know me a little bit and said, wow, you're doing so many deals. And that was that 3 to 4 mark, which McKinsey's identified as like programmatic M&A. I put in a head of M&A, head of integration at a back office team that was administering it because we had so much deal flow, and we took it really seriously. And I knew that was like, okay, we're going to build this to scale. I'm going to put the pieces together. We're going to integrate it, and then we're going to exit.
And how were
Uh,
you finding the agencies to acquire, especially since you were newer to this field?
well, the great thing about being an agency owner, you know how to get in front of people.
Mm,
So I find it interesting that there's a lot of agency owners that have transitioned to private equity, or at least business buying from a
hmm
portfolio or holdco perspective. It's really simple. We know how to get in front of opportunities.
hmm
We know how to position ourselves to the market digitally. And so that I kind of gave you the secret. In 2019, I acquired that outbound agency,
hmm
and I
You
built a
use
whole
that.
I
Yeah.
had a whole business development team within the agency that had as a service. I took 2 people and just ran our outbound services for myself as me going out and saying, hey, uh, what's going on with you? This is what's going on with us. Have you thought about selling, being part of something bigger? Are you open to having a chat?
Yeah.
And it's amazing how it, like, if you're just human, and you empathize with people's situation and you come from them, you look like them, you're running a business similar to them, people are open to talk.
Yeah,
Uh,
let me interject our personal experience with this because we did something super similar where you're right, it wasn't hard at all to get these conversations, and I had probably 50 different conversations. Now we were in a very narrow part of the market because we're B2B podcasting, which is just a very specific little niche.
yeah.
Um, the challenge we ran into was company, most of the people that do what we do are on the younger side of things. And we were also looking to acquire smaller agencies. So it wasn't life-changing money. So it
Mhm.
was a combination of a problem of they weren't getting life-changing money. They were younger, so they didn't want to retire and walk away. They weren't burnt out on it really, and they didn't know what they were going to do next. So that was one of the challenges that we ran into. So
It's a common one.
yeah. So for you, then were you targeting like agencies that where they've been doing it for a certain period of time or looking to walk away or retire or anything like that, or no?
So targeting is a very, they give me a lot of credit with that. In the beginning, it was pure shotgun. It was, instead of having a thesis and then going out and testing that by getting feedback from outreach, let me go find out what other people want. And that was the advantage, first principle, like beginner's mind. I didn't come from investment banking, even though I learned M&A and I learned transactions and corporate finance. That wasn't what I did as a profession. So
Yeah.
I went into it with a very simple idea, which is my job is to give you whatever it is that you want in a way that I can quantify a multiple of return.
Mm.
And if I can't quantify a multiple of return, then obviously I'm going to pass on the deal. And most deals have 2 structures. They have a narrative, which is the story about the deal and the owner and the opportunity, and the numbers. And you can't do a deal without having both, but you definitely can't do a deal if the narrative isn't there. And the deals that fall apart are because the numbers work, but the narrative doesn't. And so what I found, and I was building a vision, I was building Uhuru as a very strong platform. I had a very clear value proposition. I had an integration plan. I mean, we ran, I call it top tier sophistication in regards to M&A because we obsess about M&A. I've been obsessed with M&A since I was a kid. And so we ran the process not like most casual people do. So most businesses that are attempting to do it don't run an acquisition process. They just kind of dabble at conversations.
Yeah.
And each type of seller has a certain reason to sell or a reason to join something else. And you just have to have your vision aligned with that reason. And then you have to talk to enough people to find, the amount of people who will do a deal with you for that reason. And it's a lot different than trying to do a minimum viable deal thesis and then go specifically to market to buy something.
So then did you eventually get to a place where you only wanted to acquire companies where the seller had a particular vision of what they wanted, or were you flexible in terms of the seller?
Well, where I am now is very different from those days. So
Okay.
Uhuru was built under what we call pods or hives. And so I knew from a pure expanding the business, I needed more teams in
Hmm.
order for us to handle the volume of opportunities that this outbound engine was creating for us in our inbound engine. And I was just always hampered by, I just need more people. I just need more people to do the work because we got the ability to close these deals. So I was doing acquisitions from a how do we expand our ability to service this amount of volume that we have on the front end. And so I needed small teams. So I looked at every acquisition that I was going after in that day as I get a whole team instead of trying to hire and then expand and then migrate people within the organization.
Hmm.
And I get revenue and clients that come with that. So I was essentially just bolting on more hive teams to the business and expanding the revenue and expanding the capabilities or reinforcing those capabilities. Very simple narrative. If you're an agency owner with 6 people, you look like one of my small teams. There's
Yeah.
a really easy, I can port you in. I know the back office. I know the support. I know the arbitrage gain that really I can give to you within the deal. I know how to incentivize you to what we're building. Very simple vision to articulate. And so that fit a certain temperament. Will it range between 20 to 45-year-olds? Yes. Was it the, silver tsunami gray hairs who wanted to retire folks? No.
Yeah.
That's not who we were going after. But I got to, a really aggressive amount of deals we sold, and then we started Agency Ventures Aggregator in 2022. Welcomed my first daughter, and that thesis changed M&A. And over the last few years, my whole, like I was just doing my own thing. Now I've been able to extend that reach and then narrow specific theses or minimum viable deal theses that work for different types of owners who are trying to scale through M&A, which is what I do now. And I still own assets and I have minority stake in businesses as well. But I also sit as a board advisor to 3 roll-ups. And those roll-ups are actively former students of mine, mentees who are implementing, at programmatic M&A, and I guide them through that process. So
Got it.
I now have had enough reps
Got it.
to
So you're
where
helping
to
guide
me it's a lot
them
easier.
not make the mistakes that I probably did after 50 conversations. Let's talk
Well,
about
yours is
integration.
actually well. Let me point out one thing, if you don't mind, if I
Sure.
turn this on you for a
Yeah,
second.
yeah. I don't mind being
Um,
guinea pig.
So it's really interesting. So I acquired a business called Growth Hackers, and what I found when trying to failed to recruit a friend of mine as CEO for all of 7 months of last year was the VC model of M&A. And people don't know the VC model of M&A.
Explain what that is.
The VC model of M&A is instead of raising capital for my startup, my SaaS, I'm going to go buy a service business that supports the SaaS model to fortify EBITDA and profits. Basically, what SaaS companies try to do, which add service after the fact, or SaaS companies try to build software, do that through a transaction, then go raise my rounds of financing or funding. So I don't have to dilute as much ownership and use
Mm,
M&A as a way to start the
mm,
venture,
mm.
which means if you've ever raised money before, people go, okay, this is how we're going to make 100 million in revenue business. And then here's
Yeah.
the pro forma model that gets us there. And that's why the pre-money valuation, when you come in for this amount of money, 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, means you get 5, 10, 15% of the company. You're like, but you're pre-revenue. So all of this is spreadsheet transaction, right? Spreadsheet value. Well, it's interesting. The same thing exists in M&A. And I didn't know that until recently. I was doing creative financing, sure. I was trading in the equities of the business as a form of consideration. I was also doing cash and debt as a way to give money to the ownership. But I was like, this is fascinating. And so what I found is the vast majority of people, at least this is the common denominator, who struggle at doing growth through M&A is because they don't have this is the 20 million enterprise value, 50 million enterprise value, 100 million enterprise value version of our business we're building. And here's where you're playing a role in that through this deal. The journey that you're providing for the seller isn't as exciting as I'm just getting you out of your current day. And when you don't have the end in mind within the story that you're sharing with the world around what you're building, it's very hard to get people excited to join you. So if I were to use you as a pure example, if you said, hey, Rise is selling in 5 years. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. We're going to time the market, but we're going to build this. We know the demand's here. We know what we've been able to accumulate both on our production side, our marketplace, our technology, and also the service side. But we built a mini portfolio of services that we want to be mini portfolio businesses. And we're going to sell this thing in the future. And here's the model that shows that we're going to exit for 150 million. When you're interacting with someone who's a small business to buy them, you can say, and we're going to roll you into that. Or join us to help us build that.
Then they get excited about it. Yeah.
That's a different story than I'm just exiting my business.
Yeah.
People only sell a business if they're done with it. Actually, that's true with all things, John. You never sell something unless you're done with it. So the fact that they're showing up and discussing it means they're done. Now, you didn't convince them that the thing you're building is better than the thing they're done with. And that's the vision. That's the end. And so the same way it works with fundraising and transacting in the future value of the business and consideration and equity today, it goes the same with getting deals done now. If your reason for them to take action is not big enough, that's what, by the way, motivation is 2 words in Latin. It's reason for action. So if the reason isn't big enough for them to take action, why do a deal? And so vast majority of the time, it's just your proposition, your narrative to the marketplace isn't big enough to compel them to join you or to be a contributor to it. And if you can solve for that, wow, it's really easy to do deals. A good example is Eric Huberman of Hawk Media. His Hawk Media obsession of what he wants to build and never sell is why he's able to do like a transaction a month now. Now he has a corporate business development team, but it's because his whole storyline is join that vision, not do this transaction.
So let me be devil's advocate for a second here. And let's say that I'm listening to this. I'm an agency owner and I just want to do some small little deals. I don't want to, I don't have this big vision. They don't want to build, a $20 million company or something like that. Can it still work for them? And if so, how do they articulate this vision without having that massive vision?
So if you're running a small business and you don't have the ambition to sell it, you're probably running a lifestyle business. And if you're running a lifestyle business, you might not want to create too much complexity that could risk your lifestyle business. M&A is a risk. It is. It's a professional career for people who go to Wharton and big financial education schools in Ivy League. To say that you're going to use M&A to grow is great, but you're using a performance business approach on a lifestyle business. It's just hard to say that the probability that's going to be very strong. So I don't endorse that actually. Now I do say M&A solves all business problems, creates them as well, but it solves all business problems. And I use that as a paradigm shift. So if you have something you're trying to solve for in the business, ask yourself, could an acquisition solve it? And just that exercise, right, is very useful. So a great example of this would be, hey, a founder is involved in sales. And it's a bottleneck to expanding the business. Let's remove selling as an option. It's just a bottleneck. The business can't expand because the owner wears too many hats in one of its business development, plus leadership, plus culture, plus all the other administrative hats that they have to wear in the business. So could I acquire a business and get someone else who will take that mantle from me? Yeah, you could probably find another owner who's doing sales for their agency, for their podcast agency, and they're just not growing and they were accidental entrepreneurs and they're actually a salesperson in your company, but they're just out on their own today.
Yeah.
And figure out a deal to get there. So yeah, you could solve that problem. Again, I just really harp on the difference. If you want to be a casual athlete, don't set Olympic expectations. But if you want to be an Olympian, calibrate appropriately for that expectation. And so M&A does give you that type of Olympic level of performance improvements. It's like training for something that's material, but you got to have an end in mind. Like in 4 years, I know I'm running the 100 at this pace in Paris, right? I know it's 9.86, depending on who's running that year. You know, a very measurable outcome in the future you need to get to, and you can work backwards from there. And M&A can get you there much faster. Inorganic gets you there consistently, much faster, proven, non-negotiable. But the business is very different versus the lifestyle.
Let me ask you about another important piece, which is integration. So you did 8 different acquisitions, and many people have said that sometimes the integration is, the hardest part. A lot of times it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about the secrets behind that and how you managed to make it work.
Make a lot of small problems and make a lot of small issues in the early transactions. So the first one is you never do your first acquisition that's more than 30% your employee count. So first rule that I teach people.
Was that the case with your first acquisition?
Yeah, I didn't know it was the case. Like it's hindsight. I go, oh, that was really smart that I did that way. The reason
even though you were doubling your revenue from that first acquisition, the employee count was actually still 30% of what we had. Okay.
And so think about this for a moment. If you have a dinner party and you ask your friend to invite people, if you have 8 people over and they invite 8 people you don't know, that's a very different energy than you planned.
Mm-hmm.
But if they only bring 30%, so if you have a 10 person and they bring 3 people, well, it's still going to be your energy. Those 3 people they don't really change it that much. They contribute and it could disrupt it, but it could also be very positive. So it's just a general rule. Same thing goes with market caps. So if you look at it from an investment perspective, M&A is executed at 30% of market cap. So they don't dilute the business unless it's a fully integrated merger. But it's just a general rule. The first way to protect yourself in integration is just not to go too big right away, unless you're going to be the 30% in the bigger company. People don't realize you can buy up. You as an operator or as the owner of the business who works above it could buy something bigger and inject your business into it. So many people think I have to go buy someone and they're going to be smaller and I put them in. You can be the small one and be something bigger. And you can transition to a chairman role. You can transition to M&A.
If you did do that, let's use round numbers. So let's say if you did do that and you have 30 employees and the company you're acquiring has 100, is that the right math? Like, so you have 30.
So if your 30 people went into that 100, do you think your culture of 30 is going to be the dominant culture? No, it's going to be the 100.
Right. So how can you pull off that type of integration or that type of acquisition without succumbing to the culture of the company that you've acquired?
Well, the assumption there is that you don't want to succumb.
Oh, okay.
Technically speaking, right? Just because we do it over here doesn't mean that's the right way to do it. Now, there's different cultural categorization. So there's some cultures that are more inclined because of the constant change they're used to, and agencies thankfully have that compared to a lot of the other M&A activities throughout like more traditional businesses or HVAC or something else less used to all the variety of clients and topics all the time. But again, just number one rule is integration is the assumption that 2 things come together and it's going to be better than apart. And so the magnitude, the throttling of how much of that you do, you control. In Uhuru, I was baptizing people to a new religion, John. I was transitioning them to Scrum, building super efficient humans, efficient and effective. We have the E-square Parthenon, and then we explained how foundationally we built that. We had a whole methodology. You're brainwashing people to a new thing. That's what you're trying to do. You're giving them swag day one, branding them literally day one, so everyone can be assimilated much faster, right? Think we are the Borg, right? That's what you're trying to build. And it's interesting because we go, integration has challenges. There's a profession of integration. There's just like there's HR, finance and accounting.
Right.
There's a profession of integration. You're just not treating it like a professional thing. You're just doing it as secondary or third on the list because you're a deal maker and you're doing transactions. We made it first. And we said, okay, what's the primary focus on prioritizing integration? We also made a lot of mistakes, which reinforced our onboarding plans, detailed 30, 60, 90, 6 months, all things are in the calendar. We're really well documented on how to execute it at scale. But that's programmatic M&A. Programmatic M&A is not, I can go buy a company every 2 weeks. It's I can go buy and integrate and support a company at that clip. And so it's the same type of sophistication.
Yeah.
And again, that's what I teach now. That's what the book and everything I'm leading towards is going to be.
Well, this has been great, really interesting, Peter. And I want to wrap up with my gratitude question. So I'm a big fan of gratitude and practicing gratitude, and also giving our guests a little bit of space at the end here to acknowledge people. You mentioned Al, your mentor. Anyone you would want to just shout out and thanks for helping you in your journey?
It's a long list. Al Martino had a significant impact. His passing probably fueled a lot of the aggressiveness that I had towards achieving what he thought I could do in it. I have unconditional, undying support from my parents, although I completely disappointed them by not going into a conservative, easy job. I went into entrepreneurship and I didn't take over the family business. They're easily my biggest champions. And then I'm very fortunate. My wife is the integrator. So when you talk about the visionary and integrator, that's who I'm married to. And we've done every business and every adventure, every investment. We do everything together. And so I am codependent, but so positively committed to that codependency that it's a benefit to me.
That's great. Peter, where can people go to learn more about you and connect with you?
Seems like the only social media platform I still care about is LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So please use LinkedIn. I have a team that manages it. So if I don't get back to you right away, the team will do their best to support that. You can find me through events. Growthhackers.com is, you'll see my face a lot more there if there's something that you want to do in person. But of course, reach out through LinkedIn.
Awesome, Peter. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you, John.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.